Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our December 2018 customer webinar. Today, Phil Proct, Product Manager, and Christine Masters, Director of Product Management, will offer tips you can use to spark great results from your email marketing efforts. I'm Cherry Wolf, Marketing Specialist for Town News. The presentation will take about 30 minutes and a Q&A will follow. At any point, you can type a question into the chat box, but we'll wait to answer them at the end. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available early next week. Phil?
Great, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. And I have Christine to my side to kind of help me, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff. I don't think I will be, I hope I'm not. But yeah, so today we get to talk a bit more about email reach. For those of you who aren't necessarily familiar, we'll kind of do a quick overview as well, just to make sure. And today's agenda, we're going to cover obviously the market today, what you can expect or what's happening lately, and then specialty newsletters, things that kind of inspire new ideas for you to help you kind of position yourselves in your market, and obviously additional revenue possibilities for and out of newsletters. And we're going to talk about how to generate more users and get more signups for your newsletters as well. So first of all, a quick kind of dirty overview about Block's email reach. So it's a separate application, and of course, with that, you have access to all of the other applications that are included with Blocks in the entire framework there, as well as with this, you get to design your own email newsletters. So as you're probably already familiar with the block design, we have email reach specific blocks that you can now create and place into newsletters. And you can design the layout however you'd like to. If it's daily news, or if it's coupons, or if it's calendar events, all of these are blocks that you can kind of place and design your newsletters with. And of course, with this application, you have the ability to schedule these emails on a schedule that is more suiting to you, if they're daily headlines, if they're weekly, or if you want to also send auto-trigger emails. So if you have breaking news, you can create an email list that is designed specifically to send out and alert folks to that breaking news whenever it happens. And then, of course, we have e-edition notifications. If you have a new e-edition every day, you can notify those users easily with these email reach application. And then, of course, it's important to also include any social media links to get those people kind of more invested with you outside of just the email, but everywhere else. And then, of course, the application allows you to also test these emails. It's important to make sure that any of those are looking good in all different applications, or in mobile and in desktop as well. And that's kind of just a quick overview of kind of what email reach kind of offers beyond obviously what we're going to talk about today. So in today's market, nearly half of the email opens occur in mobile. So that's about 40%. So it's important, and I'm going to kind of remind you throughout the entire thing, is to make sure your newsletters look good on mobile. 75% of people say they check their email on smartphone. I'm talking to numerous people on the line today that likely check their email daily, so on their phone. So it's important to make sure that you put yourself in your user's shoes when you're actually looking at these emails, to make sure that these are actually digestible, that they look good in all areas. An average open rate today is about 25%. So important to kind of keep that as well, that you want to make sure that you are maintaining a nice newsletter that's going to be clickable, that's going to help drive traffic, obviously, to those articles. Desktop remains steady at 17%. And right now, an average, most news outlets offer about 2 to 10 newsletters, and half are generally about the news, and the other half are about entertainment. 33% are offering those breaking news newsletters that I mentioned before. And the rising concern over social media isn't that social media is interfering or impeding on those, but it is actually, from a user's perspective, they're trusting in social media less now. So it is actually an advantage for you to begin using email reach and email newsletters more now than ever because of this declining trust in social media. We'll kind of talk about that more in user acquisition as well. But we want to first talk, I think, about some of these special benefits for media sites and benefits for readers. So with this brand awareness, obviously you want to keep your brand top of mind. Email newsletters are, of course, a great way to generate more traffic on a daily basis. And of course, you can earn additional ad revenue for those newsletters. And you have that direct relationship with those readers. And these are obviously, that relates to how personal this is. Once a user gives you their email, they're trusting you to maintain that email and to deliver them with responsibly news on a daily basis or however you want to. But making sure that that relationship is lasting is going to be important to make sure that you deliver them with the right news that they signed up for at that time. Obviously, benefits for readers are the ease of use. With these, they are already having access to their email on a daily basis. They don't have to go to another application or download an app to actually access this news. They're going to have it right there on their email box, in their inbox daily. And then social media fears, obviously, that I mentioned before, they are relying more on email now than ever. So there's actually been an uptick in the reliance and the dependence on email of late. So important to kind of keep that and understand, today's market and where readers are coming from. With email reach specifically, this is a huge tool to help you increase and generate traffic to your news and site. Specialty newsletters. These are a whole host of ideas that kind of help you and inspire you to kind of begin thinking more broadly beyond necessarily your daily headlines, but perhaps prep sports scores on a Friday every weekend that you want to send them and alert them of what's happening in your local community with sports. Today's obituaries, you're likely doing something like that right now, but making sure, are you indeed already alerting people or allowing anyone to sign up for today's obituaries or receive those alerts? Weekly deals, if you're doing any sort of coupons or contests, you can certainly create newsletters out of those to alert any of those readers who sign up for that there are new deals, new coupons. And then, of course, the daily headlines and afternoon updates. These are simple and breaking news. These are simple things that you should probably check off your box almost immediately, that we already offer these things. Beyond that, you can do local entertainment if you have a staff or journalists that are writing about anything local, whether it be live music or new businesses, store closures. Those types of things are actually nice traffic generators that you can certainly pile into an email newsletter that's going to alert them on whatever basis. If, let's say, an auto email triggers that it's local, that it will only send out those newsletter items if, indeed, these things kind of hit this criteria. Local crime, obviously, those are all of these I feel like are going to generate a lot of traffic. Weather outlook alerts, this is another one that you should probably have kind of already on your list. E-edition notification that I mentioned before, notifying those people that their e-newsletter or their e-edition is now available. Home and garden, all of these kind of different subjects and local niche categories can certainly be created and crafted around your local area to help generate traffic into your website. We'll kind of show some examples as well. Here on the left, you have kind of an example of the daily headlines. You have kind of above that, you'll notice obviously the weather, but you'll also see a banner ad above that. So they're able to monetize this newsletter via perhaps that banner ad. And then to the right of that, you have today's e-edition. This is that kind of daily alert that your e-edition is now available. And below that, they have kind of a banner ad to help them kind of promote perhaps their local contest. And then beside that, you have open houses. So we have a customer who's using Blocks Real Estate, and they have created and crafted a newsletter specific to open houses that they're likely sending on a Friday to alert them of the upcoming weekend's open houses. And then on the right, you have gift ideas. You have someone who's creating an actual gift idea coming up for the holidays, where they have an article, they're explaining to their users exactly what's going to be included and why they're kind of doing that. But beneath that, they have links to individual products that they're trying to promote, local products that they're trying to promote in their local area. And then you have events. If you have a Blocks calendar, you can certainly create a block or blocks to help populate on a weekly basis events this weekend. And you have any local entertainment, that's certainly what you can kind of help populate these local events calendar newsletters with. Rover here has another example of daily headlines. They're giving even more branding to their top. So you can kind of tell how important that is, and making sure that keeping their brand as top of mind, where these newsletters are coming from. Each of these examples you can kind of see are more in a mobile layout. So these are kind of first and foremost, they're taking it and wanting to think about mobile before desktop. And then on the right, you have today's obituaries from Omaha. You have an example of a top banner ad that's related to funeral homes. And then they have in the news, and then beneath that, all of the an example of them where they can sign up for more and subscribe to their website, as well as all of the obituaries for that day beneath that. And on the right, and lastly, you have Daily Herald, who are doing deals. So you're looking at All of these kind of linking to individual ads or local ads that are based on those local advertisers. So kind of give you a wide span of different ideas. If you're not doing some of these already, it's very easy to do. Email reach doesn't limit you to any, just one newsletter. You can kind of span a whole wide gamut of whatever you want to be able to deliver your local community. Blocks obviously is capable of having these different applications, so you could do business directory, classifieds, any of those things can help populate and deliver your users with helpful information that's going to obviously benefit your local advertisers, but also your readers as well. So with that kind of leads into revenue possibilities. Obviously, we had seen in the previous example, I can kind of link back to there, you have a banner ad, you have a couple contest ads to kind of help, obviously, those advertisers, but this is an excellent way to help monetize, just in banner ads. Is an excellent way to help monetize your email newsletters. And then obviously you can have a sponsorship if you want to craft a dedicated newsletter to almost a local advertiser. You can certainly do that. These are excellent ways to kind of get that direct relationship again with those readers. So it's a very powerful tool that you have that once they give you their email address that you can then communicate and obviously use that and leverage that kind of information for your local advertisers. So begin thinking beyond just your banner ads, but also thinking about what else can I offer my local advertisers to our readers. And obviously cross-product promotion that I mentioned before, classifieds, business directory, and press releases, calendar. These are, again, other areas where you can get your local advertisers kind of interested and insert it into their daily emails or other entertainment emails. And then, of course, email programmatic. There's a lot of partners who are now inserting programmatic ads into these newsletters. They're able to do some targeting as well to make sure that this ad is more pertinent to perhaps this user versus this other one. So there are other vendors who are actually able to offer this as well. That it's just more or less creating a new banner ad spot, but similar to what you've perhaps seen in other emails before, or on your site, if you're using, let's say, DFP, it's very similar, but injecting those types of ads into your newsletters. So important next steps with any newsletter that you're going to kind of create, any of these ideas that you want to kind of run with, are to first identify your KPIs. So you want to be able to have some sort of metrics that you want to be able to meet. If you are seeing a direct relationship between the amount of opens and the amount of page views that you're generating from that, then it's a good metrics to kind of keep top of mind. We want to be able to increase our open rate to 30%, and then which will directly correlate to a 10% increase in page views and engagement with those users. And establish some goals like that with your email newsletters. So if you're only limited to perhaps daily headlines and breaking news, begin thinking about your other products. How can we offer a new email newsletter that's going to deliver deals, let's say, and what are the metrics that we want to try to get out of that? We want to try to increase traffic to classifieds by 20%. How can newsletters help with that? What kind of newsletter would help with that? So establishing some goals, internal goals, and KPIs. These are key performance indicators, by the way, the KPI. So that could be numerous things. If it's page views, if it's open rate, if it's click-through rate, whatever, any of those kind of metrics that you want to kind of deliver and pull in together to help you generate what is best and obviously more revenue for you and more traffic to your site. These are the indicators to kind of help influence what you want to have happen ultimately on your site. So user acquisition, there are numerous things that you can kind of do. Display on signup. So in other words, when I am a new user and I've come in, I can now choose to sign up for daily headlines, breaking news, or a whole list of other newsletters that you're offering. This is an easy option that likely you should be doing now if you're not already doing. But it just gives that user an option to sign up for those things at the time they're signing up for an account. So rather than having to try to get them later on, you're getting them at the moment they're already creating an account. It makes it a lot easier. Requiring a Blocks user account or allow anonymous. If you want more people and more emails to be generated, you can allow anonymous users to come in versus requiring a Blocks user account. Some of the advantages of this are, let's say if they are a user account, they won't have to re-enter their email address into those sign-up blocks. So in other words, if I'm already a user, I could just easily check a box to sign up for daily deals without having to enter my email address, and then I'm already kind of registered with that, versus having to obviously enter that email address and then clicking the sign up. And then it's important to kind of tell your users an expected frequency, like tell them how often they'll be receiving these alerts. They'll only be receiving these alerts when news items kind of blips up. If it's breaking news, we'll only alert you when new breaking news happens. Or for coupons, we'll only alert you weekly as we get new coupons. And then, of course, another great way to generate more users is to create a contest, create a poll, get more people to kind of give you their information or want to be a part of something that's more local. So these are, again, just 4 easy ways to begin getting more of these signups. And then important part of the user engagement funnel. So this engagement funnel here are the relationship, or the kind of how you would get any of these people to kind of stay on your site is the engagement funnel of where they come in, how they activate, how you retain them afterwards, and of course the revenue or sponsor or subscriptions you might generate from them, and of course how you engage them afterwards, or how they might refer this site, your site, to more people. So I would say email reach is a huge part of the acquisition and the retention part of this funnel. You want to make sure that you can get them coming into your newsletter, whether it's shareable with other people, that if it's an email newsletter forwarded, that they want to be able to come in and be able to access that news or deals or whatever it is that you want to promote. But making sure that the acquisition is easy enough, and that the retention part, that they come back on a daily basis. Again, you have that trust with them via this newsletter, but making sure that you kind of keep them coming back. And obviously what you can do with email reach and in blocks is target these niche lists to relevant sections. If you, let's say I think it was Richmond's case who has that, or the Independent's case who has that, that blocks real estate, they might create that newsletter specifically on their real estate vertical versus having to put it on the sign up block where they, it might not be relevant to any other new user, but for particularly those people coming to the real estate vertical, they want to be able to sign up for those things. So keeping, obviously, breaking news only limited to news sections. You wouldn't want breaking news necessary to come on that real estate vertical. So being able to promote specific newsletters on article pages is kind of very similar to that. You want to be able to tie in that breaking news. You can use utility regions that we've kind of talked about before, but to inject a specific newsletter directly into the content to help increase engagement with those people is very powerful, and we've seen it work very well.
So a good example is on obits.
Correct.
If you have an obits newsletter, and if you don't, it's a very popular topic. It's obviously kind of morbid and sad, but people are very interested in getting that information. Having an obit block that just advertises or promotes the obit newsletter specifically on the obits page is obviously a great idea.
Right. And that's one example of others. You could do that. The same thing with calendar. Any of those specialty newsletter items that we've kind of shown you before, you would probably want to target those specific sections to make sure that it's only relevant to those people.
And like you said, not just on the index page, but actually in the article itself on those pages where a large majority of the people are going.
Right. With utility regions, you can inject a specific block that's going to only be inserted on, let's say, search results or within the article pages for any of those specific sections. So you would only get the obits sign up block if it's on search results for obits, or as you're reading an obituary or at the end of an obituary, you can sign up for those types of things. And of course, we offer our program, our IQ Engage program allows you to, will more or less handle the targeting. We'll collect that behavioral data to kind of be able to tell whether or not this person is in this pool of types of people who are interested in sports, and we can target, let's say, a sports newsletter directly to them to kind of help them or facilitate that relationship and get them more in that acquisition funnel.
Can I say one?
Yeah, of course.
Because I just wanted to talk and you did it. You said nothing wrong. So.
Yeah, right.
This is actually like one of my favorite things that it was a little bit of an epiphany to me when we kind of started talking about how to look at user acquisition in this funnel, and it's kind of something that's been in the industry for a little while, and it's a new thing that I think just in general the industry has been talking about, but. I love thinking about things this way because it really helps kind of organize your strategy. I think that for a long time, just in general, again, in the news industry, and I think just for a lot of people, that you try to do everything all at once, and you're trying to get subscriptions. But a lot of people aren't good people to put subscription offers in front of. and you're trying to get newsletter signups, but some people are already signed up for newsletters. So there's a lot of things that we try to do on the site to get people to do stuff where they're not necessarily the right people to put those offers in front of at that time. So thinking of things in terms of this funnel, I think is really important. And kind of the idea is that, there's a top level of people, and in the past we've kind of called them like the drive-by users, where they might not even know the name of your site. They just came there from Facebook. They might not ever come back again. And the purpose is to, number one, you might want to try to monetize those people differently than you do for more loyal subscribers that come every day. But first off, trying to convert those drive-by users to come back just one more time or look at one more page view. The strategy for how you get those drive-by people to become once a week and a couple times a month is different than how you get a daily user to subscribe, for example. So kind of looking at your specific strategies for each of these levels of users, I think is a really great idea. But and to go back to what Phil was talking about specifically, the top couple of levels of this user acquisition funnel is great for email reach, where you have somebody who comes to the site, again, they're a drive-by, and you're trying to put in front of them, like Phil was just saying, in terms of the obits pages, in terms of the sports pages. One of the goals you can have for those kind of first-time or drive-by users is to get them to sign up for an email. And if you can get them to sign up for an email, you can convert them into the next level of in the funnel, where they're coming back once a month, where they're coming back, they're starting to reply to those emails. And then at that point, you can try to get them to, come back once a week, once a day. So then you can start converting them to a higher level of participation. So I just think that this is a great way to think about how to target those different levels of users with different types of strategies. And like I said, email reach can help out with a lot of those different levels of acquisition and then user conversion. So I think it's a really great strategy. And if you haven't seen kind of this funnel stuff before, that's something that as part of the IQ Engage program, we actually go through this funnel with you and like talk about how you're going to target each of those different types of users through the IQ Engage program. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, that's we can, the salespeople can talk to you about that, and we can talk to you about that as part of that program. So it's just a really great way to think about how to do strategies on your site.
Right, and kind of the next steps or most important steps I felt like and has a lot to do with this funnel, is that identify your key performance indicators and establish some goals with any one of these newsletters that you're going to be targeting or creating. So you want to be able to begin thinking, of course, about this funnel, but also how you want to be able to measure the success of any of those. If it's, again, like Christine mentioned, driving subscriptions, then how do we do that with one person kind of coming in from an email? How do we begin thinking about that kind of that workflow? So thank you. Mm-hmm. But I think at this point,
you ready for questions?
I am ready for questions. Yeah.
All right. As a reminder, you can type those in and we will get those asked. Do you have to create an account to sign up for e-newsletters, or can you just plug in an email address?
Right. I think we kind of covered that, but it's worth kind of mentioning again. It's an option that you have with email reach to allow with any one of these newsletters if you want to allow anonymous signups or if you want to require a Blocks user account to sign up for any one of those things. So it's configurable in email reach and configurable with individual lists that you can allow anonymous signups and you can require a Blocks user account. So I think with what I did, and this is something that also kind of mentioned, and this kind of relates to the powerful integration that we have between email reach, but we have an integration between email reach and business directory, where if an advertiser, let's say, has a business directory profile page, you can create an email list that's targeted specifically to that advertiser. You probably wouldn't want necessarily anyone to require that user account to have that, to sign up for that email list, because they might have found this business through Google and they might have gotten and signed up for the email alerts to receive coupons alerts from this business. So that's an option where you probably want to have anonymous signups versus requiring the Blocks user account. But again, that's configurable per email list that you want to create in the back end if you want to allow it.
Okay. Other than website sign-up forms, what are some strategies for building and adding new subscribers to email database in the marketing campaigns? So other than a sign-up form popping up on them, do you have any other ideas?
So one thing to think about is that we can import, a CSV file from an external source. So if you work with another vendor to do contests or another type of service that you provide to to your users, and as part of that external service, you are getting their email addresses and asking for obviously you want to make sure that it's relevant and appropriate to send them the email. You don't want to spam people and then get in trouble for spamming. But if you have, again, a contest, and as part of the contest, you're saying you're signing up for our email notifications, that is something where we can import email addresses from other applications. And then when I mentioned the Facebook is one place where if you're using Facebook Instant Articles, they have something called a call to action unit that, we have a couple of customers doing that, and it actually works really, really well. That people on Facebook, they have their, they're already inside of their Facebook account. It knows their email address, and so they have kind of a one-click sign-up to get their email address for a newsletter. I will mention that right now, the only way that Facebook provides you with those email addresses is there's kind of an export in Facebook, but then you can import that into the email reach interface. Right. So it's a little bit of a manual step process there, but as soon as Facebook kind of makes that available through an API or something like that, we'll be able to make that a little bit more user-friendly.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can you put emails into, say, a marketing email newsletter? So you have this from people you have a business relationship with without having them explicitly sign up for a newsletter? I believe the law allows this, but not sure your system does.
Kind of what Christine just mentioned, you can import CSV lists into an email list if you choose. But I think it is important to make sure that there are no violations. In other words, if I do sign up for that daily newsletters list, that it is the responsibility of you to make sure that nothing that's not related to those newsletters kind of goes out to them. You can't send them, obviously, any advertising that's going to be outside of the daily headlines newsletter. You can obviously insert banner ads that might be targeted to them, but you can't necessarily target, a new sponsorship for local events that are happening here locally that we want you to sell tickets to. You couldn't probably do that or justify that, but because you run the risk of, let's say, that person violating or saying this is spam, and then you have a chance of that perhaps newsletter getting kind of caught in a whirlwind of issues after that. So we don't want to. You're establishing that trust with those users that you're going to that you're going to send them this exact type of information. So it's important not to abuse that, but I would say within reason you can, of course, with the system allows you to export and import emails into any individual email list.
Yeah, let me say two things on top of that also, which some of which you kind of said, but the first thing is obviously that there is, as they mentioned, the law. And the law basically says that you can do marketing to people with whom you've done business with in the last, I can't remember, there's like a time frame. So theoretically, if you were going to send out an email to your advertisers, if they were an existing advertiser and they were currently doing business with you, then legally, that would, under the Can Spam app, be okay. But like Phil mentioned, you do have so that's the first level of whether or not that will work. The second level is whether the person thinks that you can send emails to them. So obviously the law is one thing, but then if that user thinks that you're spamming them and they mark you for spam, there is a very high, the way that we do the email is you want to try to get the highest level of opens possible, and you don't want to get spam reports. I think that it's a 1 in 1,000 reports. If you send out 1,000 emails and just one of those does a spam report on you, that you have the possibility of entering, like basically it's like remediation, where you might get the list stopped and as a spammer, and then they'll kind of review the list, and we'll have a remediation process where we look to see what you're doing and who you're sending these to and stuff like that. So it's a very, it's very serious to make sure that you're not spamming. But the third thing is just whether or not people, even if they're not reporting you as spammers, if they just don't like the list and they put that list in their, automatically put it into their trash folder or just ignore it, your open rate will go down. And email providers like Google, like Gmail, they look at your open rates to determine whether or not you're important enough to go into the inbox, or whether they just send you into one of the other tabs, like a trash tab or a spam tab by default. And so you don't want to send out an email that people aren't opening because you want to try to get into their first inbox. So for many different reasons, you want to make sure that you're sending out good emails, not too many emails, and to the people who want them, because you want to get to the front page of them. Now, that being said, having a list of advertisers who know that you're going to send them things that are really interested in that, and you send, put an ad in a banner ad plus a print ad has a 25% off this week only. Those types of things to your advertisers. I mean, that's a really great idea. So you just have to make sure that they know that they're getting that email and that they open it and appreciate it, stuff like that.
Do you recommend or have a good way to check in and maybe even purge people that are not opening? I've heard that a purge can sometimes be to your advantage. What's your opinion of that?
Yeah. We're working on a better way to do that. There are ways that you can get rid of people. Right now I feel like a pruning thing, but we need to work on a better way to do that.
Yeah, another name for that is list hygiene, making sure that these people aren't typically opening these emails, but then actively removing those, proactively removing those people from those emails, because you want to maintain that nice click-through rate for those open rates for those emails specifically. So yeah, that's part of something that I think we're looking at helping to help you with.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. Do you offer the ability to easily send to a segmented audience? For instance, if we want to send an email to residents of a specific town or only to women?
Right now, I think it is possible to do some of this, I think, and perhaps our constant contact end of things. Right now, a lot of the application, the email reach is kind of directly tied into our kind of partner vendor constant contact, where a lot of the possibility of signing up and maintaining lists is kind of on our side. But if you want to do more and above and beyond, that's also possible via a constant contacts admin. Right now, you can obviously create these individual lists for people, but being able to target those specific segments is something that you would be able to do more likely in constant contact and then versus ours. But it all is also something that we are actively looking at. We understand that that's a huge and important kind of differentiator.
Yeah, if you want to test that out, we can, if you want to send in a kind of a ticket, we can walk you through essentially the way that could be done through the constant contact interface and see if that meets your needs, depending on the type of email setup you have now.
We are curious with any time those questions are asked, like, oh, so why do you want to target women specifically? Yeah. What is the use case necessarily that you want to target women specifically? And are you already able to do, does it really make a difference if you want to kind of target them? Is it in advertising? What is the goal? I think then making sure that that's established and communicated to us will help us better understand, and of course have any additional features that we want to integrate and improve upon in the email reach as well.
On sites with a hard paywall, would you suggest most articles and emails be free to read behind the paywall or 50-50?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll take a stab at that and see what you think, Phil. But yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who you're mailing them to. I mean, obviously, if you again, through kind of IQ Engage, you could target a list sign up just to your subscribers. So if you're able to ensure that a majority of the people on that list are subscribers, then it could even be like a subscriber benefit that they get a really nice cultivated list of top stories that is a subscriber benefit. I guess to me the most important thing would be that there's some way to identify which links are behind subscription and which aren't, if you do have a mixture. I believe we have a feature where it'll show like a key or an icon in front of stories that are behind subscription whereas stories that won't have that. So as long as you kind of notify people ahead of time that this is the VIP area that requires a subscription and this is free, then I think that would be fine to do. But it's more about, user frustration and user, again, the goal is to try to get people to open these and to read them so that you get better open rates and then get higher in the inbox. So if you have an email that I can't read any of the stories, then I'm just gonna ignore that email. So that's what you want to try to make sure that their expectations are set ahead of time and that they know what they're getting and what they can click on.
Mm-hmm. And to kind of I won't play devil's advocate on any of that stuff. I'll just kind of also highlight that with any of those things, you want to make sure that you're kind of adhering to that funnel as well. Like if you're going to have a hard paywall, then how are you going to get more subscribers via email list? Is that possible? Identify your goal. We want emails to be able to generate more subscriptions. So maybe a hard paywall isn't necessarily going to work for any of this specific list. That you would prefer that they are able to read perhaps the article, or that you have an example, one article for those users who aren't subscribers that they would then be able to read versus the rest of it's going to be behind a paywall. So you have a list of different options that you can kind of work with, but making sure that you are considering your user acquisition funnel, making sure that we want to generate more subscriptions, and considering the path for any one of those people who aren't currently subscribers and what they might do with that email should they get one.
How are e-edition emails sent or handled?
This is actually a really cool functionality that we built a while ago that I don't think we've promoted it enough, so I'm glad we mentioned it on the thing because it's a cool feature and I don't know how many people are using it. But if you are using our email platform and our email reach platform, there's an integration between the two of them where you can set up a specific list in EmailReach, and then you go into your settings on your e-edition side, and you say that whenever this e-edition goes live, automatically, so you don't have to do anything, automatically notify this list that the email for today, or the e-edition for today is now available. So you create a specific list for it, and then you promote that list inside of your e-edition and on the front page of the e-edition. And then essentially, whenever during the day the e-edition goes live, so if it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, if it happens, maybe it's an hour late that day, and it's at 8 o'clock in the morning, as soon as it's ready, it automatically sends it out to that email list, and it says, today's e-edition is now available, click here to begin reading. And it has a little picture of the front page of that particular day's e-edition. So it's actually a really great service. And again, previously we had some people that would send out an email every morning at 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's an issue where it's not quite ready at 6 a.m. So they go there and it shows yesterday, and then so this way it'll only send that email once it's ready and live. And it's a great way to notify them that it's ready for that day and get them interested in that, and remind them to check it every day. So it's a really good feature. And again, if you there's a little bit of setup on both of the sides to make sure you have the list, and then make sure you add it to the specific publication settings of each of the e-editions. So if you have any questions, then contact us about that, and we can help you set it up.
We got some feedback. We use it, and it's quite popular.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Next question. How do we create different kinds of newsletters, and how can we make sure it's mobile friendly?
So there is testing that's kind of, speaking to the last question, mobile friendly. There is testing that you can do with any one of these newsletters that you can kind of send it to your inbox to preview it before it goes out, to making sure that you are looking on your phone. Obviously, you will likely have a device that is capable of looking at that. But then, of course, you can resize your browser to look at any one of those emails. It is a URL, so you're talking about domain.com/newsletters/list of all of your newsletters. So you can go and preview your newsletter at any point if you'd like to kind of see what's being generated.
And I guess, one important thing to mention here, and this might be obvious, but assuming that there's some people who are on the call who might not be 100% familiar with how this stuff works, one really nice thing about blocks is that all of these newsletters are built the same way that you build your pages. So, if you're using a different email provider, you might be getting RSS feeds out of blocks and then building pages based on RSS feeds, or there's a bunch of different kind of weird ways that you might be sending out newsletters with other vendors. But with the Blocks email reach product, it's actually just another page in your block site. So you're designing that page with special blocks just for email. And so those blocks are mobile friendly and they work on mobile. And creating a new newsletter is just like creating a new section of the site. The other nice thing about that is because of the fact that these are just blocks in the system, you don't have to like build the page every day. The page is automatically built on how you're designing your site on a day-to-day basis. So that part is automatic. And like Phil said, just make sure you're looking at it. Even though these are mobile friendly, and specifically email mobile friendly, because that's a different thing, obviously, there are ways that you can kind of mess up the mobile friendliness of it by including like a big graphic across the top or different things like that. So it is important to make sure that you're just looking at it in the mobile view and on the phone, just to make sure that it looks good, because that's an important thing. But it's a great feature of the product.
Another question about how e-edition emails are handled. Can a daily JPEG be identified as a static URL as the front page to send a static link to the current day's e-edition?
I'm not 100% sure of specifically the question, but I can tell you that the email that is sent out, that is the that feature I'm describing, where there's an automated email that goes out. That email sends it basically scrapes a specific page every time it goes out, and that page has the updated picture of the e-edition on it. So you should be getting that as part of that email that goes out. If you were doing something else, then you might not be using that specific feature, or we might need to set up something different on that page. So if that's something that you're already doing, then send us a ticket and we can kind of look into that. But if not, that is kind of how that works. It will have the picture of that day automatically by just scraping that page.
Can you talk a little bit more about the declining trust in social media and what some of the fears are?
Yeah, I mean, the fears are that there's been breaches of late, and there's been issues in trust, I would say, for a lot of users who are on social media. Within the last year, you've seen a lot of perhaps people leaving social media, so that's no longer becoming a resource for them to get a lot of their news. So you're seeing a lot of that decline. You're seeing a lot of people more hesitant to click on anything that's related to that kind of stuff, and that they're relying more, let's say, on the personal relationship that they have with their local media site. So you're looking at less trust. That becomes obviously a resource, which social media was always kind of a way for people to kind of talk about themselves and also about news that's related to them personally, but less about the kind of local news that's happening within media. So I think the point of that is emails are still important to a lot of people, and they're still trustworthy for a lot of people, whereas social media is actually more on the decline when it comes to that user's trust. So that's kind of the message behind a lot of that, is that you just want to make sure that the relationship, once they give you that email address, you maintain that, and you have this nice handshake between that person and yourself, that you are now responsible for maintaining that relationship therefore afterward. And the news that you're providing them is pertinent to whatever they've signed up for, as opposed to a social media, which is just kind of all around you. It becomes untrustworthy quickly.
Yeah, and I think too that, and this is just kind of added on to what you're saying about just fake news and users' trust and Facebook and whatnot in general in today's environment, that there is, users are kind of looking to other sources for information. That being said, the other side of that is just that, Facebook's changing its algorithms, and we're actually seeing we're seeing significantly less traffic coming in to just overall as an industry coming in from Facebook, and the algorithm has changed. It used to be that Facebook was one of the number one referrers for news sites in general, and now it's back to Google search being the number one referrer, and Facebook has dropped down. So having your email newsletters as a replacement for that traffic is a great idea. You might have lost 10% in terms of your referral traffic from Facebook, supplementing that with email reach traffic and email acquisition traffic is a great idea. Number one, just because users, like Phil said, appreciate that news coming from the source. And number two, your email delivery does not depend on Facebook and whether or not Facebook is happy with publishers or not happy with publishers or their news feed algorithm at that point in time. So that way you're not relying on a third-party platform for how your users are getting your news. And so kind of taking back ownership of that relationship is another benefit of email, because that's yours.
Great.
That was kind of deep, but
that was Thank you for all the great questions. If you want to stay connected with us, you can go to our website and sign up for one of our newsletters. So we have quite a few of them. Huh? You could also find documentation at help.blockcms.com. You can call our support line or go to support.townnews.com to send in a ticket. And the partner community is a great place to swap ideas. If you've got a great newsletter that you want to show off, and if you have questions about what's working for other people, that's a wonderful place to find out. community.townnews.com. You can check the service status at townnews.status.io. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. It looks like we got one more question. We use UTM tracking on our auto-generated emails, but we have a weekly newsletter where we write it as an article and direct people to stories they might have missed. But is there a way to get UTM on those links?
As long as it's using our email blocks, the email blocks themselves have an option where you can add UTM tracking to them and customize it. So I believe that that's the case. If you're scraping an article page, it needs to be the email version of the article page, which also does have UTM tracking. So I guess I would say, yes, there should be UTM tracking in that. If you're not seeing that, then submit us a ticket and we'll look at that. There should be UTM tracking on all email things, and that's a great. And just as a very quick note, if you're not familiar with UTM tracking and how to kind of track all that stuff, we have that built into Email Reach by default, and it's a great way you can actually look up in Google Analytics how many users are coming to your site based on which newsletters and where they got, where they were reading things from. So it's a great way to see kind of the success of your newsletters and how you're driving traffic back to the site. So if you're not familiar with that, then definitely look that up. And like I said, if you're not seeing that in your analytics, then submit us a ticket and we can look at that.
Great. Oh, is there a defined URL for the referenced scrape page, like for an e-edition?
As part of setting up the, is for the e-edition scrape specifically?
Yes.
There is a defined page. I don't remember what it is, but
submit a ticket and we'll make sure you get your specific URL that you can check. Okay, last chance, last call for questions. We've got a couple that we squeezed in. So you were talking about letting people know about how often newsletters come in. If you go back to ours, we have our release notes go out every Friday pretty consistently. The other ones are quarterly, but if you let people know how often to expect it, they're more likely to open it when it comes, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's establishing, a clear communication with them at the time that they're signing up, exactly what they can expect. And that would obviously ensure they're not being spammed or that they're receiving something at a higher frequency than was expected. And you obviously want to keep that list as preserved and highly as highly as possible. So.
All right. Okay, no one got any other questions in. Stop.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And again, happy holidays. We'll see you next time.